I'm going to talk about a recommender system that we have built in the past 2 years. And this system uses a data mining technique called contrast pattern mining. And the purpose of this system is to make recommendations so that to improve the quality of life by making people happier. Okay. And this is part of the project that we have been doing with Manifold Data Mining Incorporation. And this project is supported by an NSERC CRD grant. And it is also part of, it's also a sub-project in the BRAIN Alliance. And BRAIN is a project supported by an ORFRE grant. Okay, and this project is co-led by Professor Jianhong Wu and myself. And those are the people who have developed this system. Jianshen Chen was my former master's student, and Joy was our undergraduate student who is now working in Google. And Margaret was my postdoc. Okay, so they all have graduated. And the objective of this project is to analyze large data set on health. It is a health survey data. Okay, to analyze that data set to discover patterns among patients with either diabetes or heart disease. Okay. And the patterns is about the lifestyle of people, social connections, mental health, etc. Okay, and the purpose of funding those patterns is to make behavior recommendations to improve the quality of life. Okay, in general, is to make people feel happier. And this work was motivated by the fact that positive emotional states have a positive effect on the overall health of people. That means happy people tend to be healthier. Okay, so it is better to make recommendations on the behavioral habits for people to become happier because it can improve the quality of your life. And we also found that a fixed set of recommendations usually do not satisfy the user. So it's better to customize the recommendations according to the characteristics of the user, such as whether the user is young or old, whether the user is working or retired. Okay, so we are going to build a collaborative recommender system based on the characteristic of the user. And the system is based on a data set. So we try to find the patterns from the data set and use the pattern to make a recommendation. And the data set is a Canadian Communities Health Survey data set. Okay, and it is a yearly survey conducted by Health Canada, Statistics Canada, and the CIHR, okay, Canadian Institute of Health Information. Okay, and the data set contains a large number of people, and we focus on a group of people with diabetes and or heart disease. Okay, and the survey contains over 100 questions, about 114 questions, and we call those questions attributes in our data set. And those questions can be organized into 7 categories about the quality of life, lifestyle, mental health, social connections, adherence, geodemographics, and healthcare experience. So totally more than 100 questions in these 7 categories. Just to let you see what type of questions are there in the data set, here are some examples. In the category of lifestyle, we have the the question asks about the daily consumption of fruit and vegetables. So the choices, there are a number of choices for the answers. 5 to 10 times per day is one of the choices. Okay. And another example in health, lifestyle category is whether how often you smoke. Okay. And the answer, one of the answers could be daily. And in the mental health category, we have a question whether you are satisfied with life in general. And the answer, you have 2 or 3 answers for this question: satisfied, not satisfied, and maybe partially satisfied. And another example is, do you have life stress? And we have a number of answers. Okay, so those are the examples of questions. So there are more than 100 questions in this data set. Okay. And again, we focus on part of the data set. And the data set contains nearly 17,000 people. Okay, and again, they are with either heart disease or diabetes, and we group those people into 7 categories, 7 emotional categories. Okay, so and these categories are grouped according to the answers to 2 of the questions. Okay, and so the categories are happy, optimistic, rejuvenated, satisfied, anxious, depressed, and gloomy. Okay, and these 4 categories we consider a positive group and those negative group. And in general, we call them happy group and unhappy group. Okay, so that's the data set groups. And the task in this sub-project is to find the differences between the positive group and the negative group. Okay, and the purpose of finding such difference is to provide the patients in the negative group with recommendations based on those differences that we found in the data set. Okay. And the methodology to build such a recommender system is a data mining technique called contrast pattern mining. Okay, and what is contrast pattern mining? And contrast pattern mining is to find the contrasting differences. We call them contrast patterns. Usually those differences are general, not very specific. Those differences between the 2 groups, the happy group or unhappy group, positive group and the negative group. Okay, so so those contrasting differences are called contrast patterns. So I give you an example. Given these 2 groups of patients, positive class and negative group, okay, and this pattern we call it contrast pattern. The pattern means smoke and consume little fruit. Okay, so why this contrast pattern? Because only 1% of people in the positive group have these characteristics. Okay, and 12% of people in the negative group smoke and consume little fruit. Okay, so so the differences is considered to be large. Okay, it depends on the threshold the user provide. Okay, and so if let's say if this is considered to be a group, the difference is a group big, then we consider this the joint of these 2 items a contrast pattern. Okay, and 12. The ratio, the percentage, the ratio between these 2 percentages are called the contrast ratio. Okay, so this is an example of contrast pattern. As you can see, the contrast pattern basically are conjunctions of items. Okay, here an item is an answer to a question. So what's the usefulness of this contrast pattern? If we know this is a contrast pattern, then if we know a new user have a negative attitude, Then, and also, this user smokes and consumes a little fruit, then we can recommend the user to either quit smoking or consume more fruit, okay? So in order to, for them to be closer to the positive group, okay? So that was an example, and formally the definition, the contrast pattern is defined as follows. We call a set of items or features is a contrast pattern if the contrast ratio is over a threshold, a user-specific threshold. And also the contrast ratio of the pattern is greater than the contrast ratio of its subset. Okay, of its subsets. Okay, so that we want to, we want to see each item in the contrast pattern contribute to the result positively. And also, we want this pattern to be general enough, not very specific, so that the frequency of this pattern in the data set has to be over a frequency threshold. This is frequency usually in data memory called support. Okay, and also the pattern has to pass a chi-square test. Okay. So, the algorithm that we use to find the contrast pattern is the algorithm based on the algorithm published in this paper. So the contrast pattern actually defined quite simply, right? It's a very simple definition of a contrast pattern, but how to find the set of all the contrast pattern is not that simple, okay? So because the contrast pattern is a subset of all the items in data set, and a data set contains thousands of items, okay? And the possible item size, possible contrast pattern is 2 to the power of the number of items. So it's exponential, the number of potential contrast pattern is exponential, okay? So therefore, if you try to check all the possible set of items to see if it is a contrast pattern or not, is going to be taking too long time, okay? So therefore, we cannot check all the possible combination of items, and so therefore, we need a smart system to reduce the number of checks on reduce the number of potential items. Okay, but that do not miss any contrast pattern. Okay, so the algorithm has to be specially designed. So that's the part about the computer science come in. Okay, so the algorithm based on a tree structure. Okay. And this structure, I'm not going into the details. So this structure allows us to ignore certain combination of items, and those are totally impossible to be a contrast pattern. Okay, so only focus on the possible contrast patterns. So reduce the search space, so the algorithm is fast. Okay, so we use adapted algorithm proposed by these people. Okay, and this tree is based on a famous tree called frequent pattern growth tree. Okay, and here is some sample result by running that algorithm on our data set. And again, our data set, we have this many of positive examples and those many of negative examples. And if we set the contrast ratio threshold to be 2, and let's say suppose threshold to be 0, that means as long as the pattern occurs, we consider to be, it's okay to be an output. Then the number of contrast pattern we found is a lot. Okay, is a lot. So, and here is an example. Okay, if you increase the threshold, this number can be reduced. Okay, so here is an example of the contrast pattern. If the person have a job and is involved in the daily activity, and the daily consumption of food and vegetables is among this value. This value is a real number because we discretized the data. Okay, and also the household highest level education is a secondary graduate. And this is the pattern. So there's each item is, we call each item as an item, and the combination of those items is a contrast pattern, and the ratio, contrast ratio with respect to the positive over negative is 19. So it's because the threshold is 2, so this is of course well above the threshold. Okay, and given this contrast pattern, if a new user satisfies the first 3 features, then we can, let's say, satisfy A, C, and D features, and then we can, but now satisfy the second one, then you can make a recommendation, ask a user to get involved with some daily activity. Okay, so that's how we use it for recommendation. Okay, and another example, contrast pattern example from that data set is that if the person is not working, and is strongly not satisfied with him or herself. So this is a contrast pattern. The ratio here, the contrast ratio is negative over positive is 16. Okay, still considered to be high. So so this part, because the ratio is negative to positive, so we call it the negative contrast pattern. And with this contrast pattern, if a new user satisfies both characteristics, then we can recommend the user to avoid either A or B. Okay, so for with both positive contrast pattern and negative contrast, we can make recommendations. Okay, just move on. All right. Okay, so in making this recommendation system, there's an issue coming up. Now the old attributes can be changed. Okay, so for example, the age, you cannot change the age of the user. You cannot change the country of birth, and it's hard to change gender. And the province of residence is now not everybody willing to change, right? And also religion, not everybody willing to change it. So that means, when we make recommendations, we can, we have to consider such issue. So therefore, we group the attributes into 3 groups. One is the static group, okay, contain the attributes that cannot be changed. And also the mutable group contain the attributes that can be changed, such as whether you drink, whether you do volunteering work. And also there's another category called the swing category. So it is changeable depending on the willingness of the user. Okay, so for example, you can change your religion if you like to, and you can change your living province, you can change your occupation. Okay, so when we try to make recommendations, if we involve such swing attributes, we ask the user if he or she willing to change. Okay, so we actually have an online recommender system, and this system takes user input by asking the user to fill out an online survey, okay, a questionnaire. Okay, and so, for example, whether the user is working or not, or whether it is a student or not. Okay, which province the user is living, and this is a swing attribute. So with this attribute, we ask the user if you are willing to change it. Okay, when user answers this question, and the output is a set of recommendations for this user. Okay, so for example, I recommend the user to participate more than average in activities in local community, and recommend the user not to smoke. This is from the negative contrast pattern. I recommend the user to avoid smoking at home, or or allowing others to smoke at your home. Okay, and the data set we have contains 114 questions, but we, in order for the system to be usable, this is over 100 questions is too many. Okay, so we, to be practical, we only ask a user 30 questions. So from the data set, we selected the most important 30 questions. Those 30 questions, the answer to those questions can distinguish the user most significantly, according to whether they are happy or not happy. Okay, so we use some attribute selection method to select the 30 attributes, 30 questions. So some of these questions are, the attributes are changeable, some are not changeable. Okay. And to build this recommender system, we already have a set of contrast pattern, okay, based on the whole data set. Oh, sorry. And then to make a recommendation, we ask the user to answer questions. We take the user input, and then we try to find k nearest neighbors of this user. That means that from the whole database, we try to find the most similar people in the database. Okay, and we try to customize the recommendation according to the k nearest neighbors. Okay, not the general recommendation for everybody. Okay, so we take the top k neighbors and try to find the contrast pattern, because there's a lot of contrast patterns. We cannot use all of them. We pick up the contrast patterns that is matched with those top k neighbors. Okay, now also through this process we'll also customize the recommendation. Okay, and then we based on the contrast patterns that match with the top k neighbors, then we make a recommendation. Okay, so the first step is to use k nearest neighbor, finding the k most similar people in the data set. Okay, and then we consider with contrast pattern matching with the neighbors. For example, if we have those are our contrast patterns, and those are the top 3 neighbors, and those patterns matching A, those patterns matching B, and those matching C. And then so we have combine all of them, we have a W, Y, Z, those patterns matching the top k neighbors. And then we combine all the items in the matched contrast pattern and remove the static ones. Okay, remove the static one, remove the ones the user already satisfied, and recommend the remaining items. Okay, so that's the very simple recommendation strategy. Okay, and we have conducted evaluation to see how effective this method is, and in the evaluation compare, the probability of the user being happy before the recommendation and the probability of user being happy after the recommendation. Okay, and the evaluation method is not easy to do the evaluation in real time, because you have to make sure the user follow your suggestion and then see if we become happier or not, right? So it's quite important for us to do it. And also we don't know, in the survey data is do not have the name. We don't know who conduct the survey, right? So the methodology we use is that we build an ensemble of classifiers based on the data that we have. With the ensemble contains quite a number of very effective classification models. Okay, and we use this ensemble classifier to classify each user to see if it is happy or not happy. Okay, to get a probability of happiness of each user. Okay, either before or after the recommendation. So this is a evaluation result. So this the top line shows the percentage of the unhappy user having happiness, the probability of happiness over 50%. Okay, so we have more than 90% of such users, become are happy after recommendation, and this line shows that the percentage of the unhappy people having probability of happiness improved after recommendation. So it's also over 90%, and this is for the percentage of people having a probability of happiness improved for the general category of people. Okay, including the happy people. So the happy people also have improvements. Even before the person is happy, but the probability of happiness improved. Okay, so K is the number of neighbors. Okay, and this one shows the the average recommended items for each recommendation. Okay, so And we also compare with some other methods. We try to see if the use of KNN is good or not. Okay, so all these measures based on contrast pattern menu. And this one we pick up, randomly pick up some contrast pattern instead of using the KNN method. Okay, and this is the percentage of people with happiness improved, 60%. Okay, our method 66%. And this one we choose the contrast pattern with the top contrast ratio. And this one has a lower percentage than our method, okay? And in general, you see the percentage of unhappy people having happiness improved is quite high. So our method gave 95%, okay? So our objective is to make unhappy become happier, okay? So currently we are, another student is is developing another recommender system based on decision trees. Decision tree is a quite popular method used for recommendation, okay? He's developing that, we're trying to compare this one with, decision tree method based this existing method that we have developed, okay? And also we want to evaluate the use of negative contrast patterns, okay? The evaluation was done on positive contrast patterns, okay? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So, yeah, here we have one quick question. Okay. You have here time?
How did you quantify happiness and unhappiness?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the data set contains a number of question answers, right? So there's two questions. Based on the answer to these two questions, the manifold, the people in manifold data mining corporation, they group those people, they group those answers into seven categories. Okay, so they group people into hyper optimistic and so on. Those seven categories. This is, the manifold people group into seven categories, and then we group this as positive, and this is negative. So this in this project we just using positive and negative. Okay, we can using seven categories. So based on that answer, I don't remember the details, but but based on that answer, we are given this data set, already grouped. Okay. Yes.
So do you know if people were happier because they were given a recommendation or because they followed the recommendation?
We didn't do the real life evaluation. We just assuming people follow the recommendation. Okay, follow the recommendation. So this is the characteristic of people before the recommendation, and we recommend you stop smoking. We assume you follow it. We change the smoke to be non-smoker. And then we classified, we gave the probability of this person, whether, probability of happiness of this person.
Okay, so thanks a lot. So she will be around with us, and then your graduate students will be giving a talk afternoon. And also, she prepared the handle teaching you a little bit about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now it's 20 minutes. Thanks again, Aijun.